how I broke my binging cycle without having to meal prep my whole life. Hey team, and welcome to this week's episode of The Inspired Show, the show that is dedicated to helping you become the best version of yourself, mentally as well as physically. We've got a great episode for you this week, all about my struggles around binges and blowouts, how I overcame it. I lost over 45 pounds, but most importantly, you've kept off for years, and the same tools and techniques I use with all my clients to help them get into incredible shape and also break their binge eating cycle as well. But before we get into this week's episode, if you've not done so already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It means you stay updated with every single episode we drop every single week. Smash a like on this video. Let me know any takeaways or thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to share it with somebody who may benefit as well. If you've ever said, I'm really good all day, but then I lose control at night, then this episode is definitely for you. I'm going to go through the exact things that I did to break that cycle and how I help my clients break that cycle without having to obsess over food or meal prepping. What we're going to cover in this week's episode is why willpower alone won't solve this issue and why rigid meal plans do not work in the long term. We'll go through how emotional eating and stress is often the biggest trigger. We'll cover what to do when those cravings hit hard and how I built a flexible structure that gives me freedom. And I'm going to teach you that too. And as a bonus, I'm going to teach you some mindset techniques that help me stay aligned with my goals and beat this once and for all. Let's jump straight into it. Why willpower alone isn't the answer, and why rigid meal plans do not work in the long term. A lot of people often believe that if they simply had more willpower, that they'd be able to overcome these challenges around their food. But the thing about willpower is it's a little bit like a battery. And over time, that battery gets depleted. And once that's depleted, that's when we lean into these unhealthy coping mechanisms around food and sometimes alcohol as well. Now, the thing is, there's gonna be loads of things in your life that deplete that battery, from your relationships, work stresses, boredom. All these things are going to massively drain that willpower. And that's going to happen even faster when you're fatigued, overwhelmed, and highly stressed. And with low willpower, it makes it harder to follow these rigid meal plans that we set ourselves. And the thing is, rigid meal plans, they do not work in reality. In theory, they sound great. Have a set meal, follow the plan, stay within those calories, and you'll lose weight. And if you were able to do that, then yes, of course, you would see results. But 9 times out of 10, unless you are some sort of competitive bodybuilder, then you're not going to be able to stick to them because life doesn't usually allow it. Because we could write you the best meal plan in the world, all singing, all dancing, or guarantee you success. But what happens when it's your child's birthday party and your child wants to go to the cinema? They want to have some popcorn at the movies and maybe have a Pizza Hut. How does that fit into your plan? It doesn't really fit, does it? Because one of two things would happen in this scenario. One, you'd be that person in Pizza Hut, in the cinema, with a little box of food, probably feeling left out. And what example are you teaching to your kids in terms of balance, which wouldn't be able to last long term? Or you'd go, F it, let's not stick to the plan, but then you'd overindulge, and then you feel guilty for going off plan, which again keeps you stuck in this vicious cycle. So we need to understand that rigid meal plans, despite having the best willpower, will not work long term. And when you feel you cannot follow that plan perfectly, that's when we lead to overindulgences and having these binges and blowouts. And the thing, it's not about having more control or more willpower, it's actually about building systems that can fit into your lifestyle. And more often than not, it's not usually the food that is the issue when it comes to staying on track with your health fitness goals and reaching your fat loss goals as well. 9 times out of 10, it's usually tied into emotions. When we have that binge, when we have that blowout, it's more about the relief we get, the gratification we get from these foods. More often than not, you'll find yourself eating to escape the overwhelm, the stresses, the anxiety, to make you feel good after a dreadful day. And the thing is, unless you deal with why you're eating, why you're overindulging, no meal plan or amount of willpower in the world will help fix that. So we need to start building awareness to the reasons why we're using food as a way to deal with our stresses and overwhelms. And this is something that I had to do on a deep level. I got really clear on how certain situations were leading me to use food and sometimes alcohol as a way to deal with that. And a really great way to help me do that and achieve that was through journaling, writing down how my day went, even on the days that were challenging, when I felt like I slipped up and everything went out the window. And these were probably the most important days because it allowed me to get really, really clear on what the triggers were, what the environments, who I was around, and what things led to that binge and blowout. And unless you address the stress, you're always going to struggle. because stress, it will raise your cravings and it will reduce your ability to pause and sit with these feelings, which then inevitably leads to this binge cycle I was stuck in. So what exactly did I do to help me beat these binges and these blowouts? As well as bringing awareness to the triggers, like I mentioned, I got really good at pausing, actually sitting with these feelings and identifying what these feelings actually are. And what we need to understand is when we get these sudden urges, these cravings, if we sit with them, eventually they will peak and they will pass. They're not permanent things. I started implementing something called the BOLD technique, which was taught to me by one of my mentors that helped me on my journey. The BOLD technique is an acronym for breathe, observe, label, and decide. So when we get these cravings, when they're hitting hard, we're actually taking a couple of minutes to breathe, taking some nice big breaths. And what we then do is we sit with these feelings and we observe what's going on. Is it physical hunger? Is it boredom? Is it stress? Is it overwhelm? And what we do is we label these feelings and then we decide and act accordingly. If it's physical hunger, we can make a better informed choice around our food. If it's stress, we can do an activity that de-stresses us. If it's boredom, we can do an activity that takes boredom off our mind. And it works incredibly well. And the more we do this, the more we start to create a new pattern and break the previous pattern of using food as a way to deal with these situations. Once I address the mindset aspect of things, and this is the first step I do with all my clients as well, we then go on to building a flexible system around our food that fits into our lifestyle that can give us long-lasting change. So the first thing that I stopped doing was focusing on perfection. I stopped focusing on having every meal absolutely perfect. I used to get really hung up on having to have my breakfast being super healthy, my lunch super healthy, my evening meal super healthy, and all my snacks super healthy. And when I put this pressure on myself and I was unable to stick to that, I feel really guilty, feel really overwhelmed, and that one slip up would lead into self-sabotage, high levels of stress, and feed that kind of binge and restrict loop I was stuck in. So instead of aiming for perfect meals, I now aim for just good enough meals. And instead of having rigid meals and rigid rules, I have more flexible, more attainable rules that I aim for on a daily basis, such as ensuring I'm having some protein with each and every meal. So for breakfast, I would typically have eggs on toast, or I might have some cereal with some protein mixed in. For example, Weetabix with protein shake on top, or a bowl of oats with a scoop of protein mixed in. My lunch would be some sort of protein with a carbohydrate. For example, I might have a chicken wrap, or maybe a tuna jacket potato. An evening meal, pretty much the same. Meat and some vegetables, some carbohydrates, something that I enjoy. And making enjoyable super important. I always strive to include a couple of pieces of fruit and veg every single day, a minimum of 2 to 3. Any more is a bonus, and I find a minimum of 2 to 3 is something I can do manageably without overwhelm, even on the most challenging of days. And I would always focus on hydrating. And I made it super easy for myself. I would drink a big glass of water every single morning to give myself a head start on the day. And they would be my non-negotiables. And once I got really good at those, I then layered in over time more structure because it became easier. It became second nature. Just as I wake up every single day and brush my teeth, these things became habits. One thing I always did as well was build what I call backup meals and backup snacks. So these are things that I could grab quickly and conveniently when I had a stressful day. So I always like to keep quick and convenient things in the house. For example, maybe having a few high protein ready meals in the freezer just in case. I know there'll be some coaches out there saying, well, they're processed, you shouldn't be eating this, you should be eating that. But for me, after a very busy, stressful, overwhelming day, in the past where I would have had a takeaway and then gone F it and kept on self-sabotaging, now I can just grab a high protein ready meal that is quick, convenient, and keeps me a little bit more on track. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being just good enough. And don't get me wrong, I did do some calorie counting as well, but I didn't get obsessive with it. I use calorie counting as an awareness tool to help me build awareness of portion control, because obviously portion control does play a massive part when it comes to managing your calories. And if we don't manage our calories, then we won't be able to lose weight. And I got really good at having a good eye for my food. And that came as a byproduct of tracking for a regular basis for about 1 to 2 years. And these days, because I've done the groundwork, I don't pretty much track every single day. I might do it maybe every couple of months, just as a bit of a refresher when it comes to portion control. And lastly, in today's episode, I want to touch about the mindset techniques, the mindset tools that I use and I instill in all my coaching clients as well. So firstly, I stopped using the story that I ruined it. You've probably been there yourself, where you have one meal that you feel is unhealthy or off plan, and then you go, I've ruined it now. What's the point in carrying on? I might as well just start again next week. So I started to drop that story I told myself, because in essence, one meal that's slightly off track isn't the end of the world. It's usually when you have that meal off track and then you self-sabotage and overindulge again and again and again, it's the days after that cause the damage and slow down progress. Think about it like this. Have you ever stubbed your little toe? Pretty painful, right? Now, when you've stubbed your little toe, have you then gone, I've ruined it now. I've ruined my little toe. Do you know what? I'll ruin the rest of my toes and then stub the rest of your toes. You simply wouldn't do it, would you? So logically, we shouldn't be doing that with our food either. So start reframing that story. If you do slip up, yes, bring awareness to it, acknowledge it, but ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And ask yourself, what can the next decision be that moves me forward instead of moves me backwards? One thing that's really helped me and helps a lot of my clients is reflecting weekly, not judging myself daily. Because not every day is going to be perfect. But at the end of each week, I would reflect what's gone well, what can I celebrate, what can I reinforce, but what hasn't gone as well? What can I learn from this week? What challenges have I faced? How did I deal with them? Why they happened? And again, utilize that as a way to grow. And from that growth type of mindset, it will help you massively overcome the binge cycle. Like I mentioned earlier, journaling, tracking how I was feeling, not just tracking my food. So on the days I felt well and good, why was that? What did I do that day? But on the days when I didn't feel as good, what was the reason for that? What was the environment? Who was I with? What were the things I was doing? How was my sleep the day before? Again, bringing awareness to things that I could improve to help my overall well-being. But most importantly, I focused on consistency, not perfection, because it's much better to be consistently good rather than inconsistently perfect. And you'll see much more progress with that. So hopefully you found this week's episode helpful. If you did, smash a like on it. Don't forget to share it and let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you need to contact me with any questions, you can contact me via any of my social media pages, link down below. And if you'd like to join our exclusive community for less than 65p a day, where we can teach you all this in more depth, then link to join is down below. Until next week, guys, have an absolutely amazing week and I'll speak to you very, very soon.